Alright, day 20, I think. Efil's video. Yay. Efil day Efil, whatever, 20. Anyway, unintelligent design, I think, is where we're going here. The whole idea of imagining a universe, this mechanical system, and you say, okay, let's say something made it. Well, then you'd have the problem, where did this something that made it, what made this something that made it? And, that's that infinite regression. As soon as you come up with some sort of mechanism that has a brain or an understanding, you have to say, where did that understanding come from? Where did the knowledge, the arrangement of information, the complexity, the innate in anything that can process an environment and react to it, where would that come from? What created it? And I think the only logical answer is if there's ever anything that can process what's happening, have it come in and they can do what we're doing, cognitively react to it and say, I understand what that is, I understand what that is, I understand what these things do. I mean, I don't understand them on the nuclear level, but I understand them, on their big, medium-sized universe level. Where would anything like that come from? It has to be made by the same process, a gradual creation, a gradual development through the condensation process. So I could take something simple. Condensation is the word I've used because that's what's happening in a sense to the universe, as things stick to other things, and that's basically what condensation does, right? That something's a cooler temperature, the vaporized matter converts into its liquid form through contact and an energy exchange, and it becomes less excited, so it sticks. Yeah. So you have a simple mechanism of the creation of a drop of water on a surface, and so on and so on and so on. So how do you go from a drop of water condensating to, billions of cells, all kinds of trillions of neural connections, processing, reacting, electricity flying all over the place inside of a 3-pound sack of goo. And yeah, it's 4 billion years. We've sort of nailed that one down too. It takes about 4 billion years under the right circumstances, and through that you'd have to get incredibly lucky in the sense that a lot of stuff will have to happen that isn't very probable. Crazy things, like you flip a coin and twice in a row the coin lands on its edge and stays there. What's the odds? Come on. But those kind of events, I think, are part of our history. So this isn't what the universe does. This create these things that are capable of doing this intelligence thing. And the real point is that these intelligent things aren't created through a process that has any innate intelligence. It's just mechanics. And no matter what the mechanics would be, it's sort of arbitrary whether the door is ever open to this replicating thing. I think it could be rationally argued that the evidence sort of kind of indicates replication doesn't happen. Okay, it's only happened in one cell. We're all related to one cell. All the biology on this planet has one ancestor. We're all brothers and sisters in that sense. Even us and the lowliest of microbes. There's nothing. It's just mechanics, and intuitively we say, well, the mechanics must have a sense to them, because everything mechanical that we use, it's part of our world in a sense. Anything that has any kind of sophistication to it is either one of these biological life forms that we certainly understand. Struggle, food, sex, yeah, we get that. Or it's something we made. And so of course we would understand its function. So we would perceive an innate functionality in creation, in anything's existence, because it's just part of, we don't, as a practical matter, make things we don't need to make. I mean, things that have no good use. If they have a bad use, they're not around very long. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, we don't keep them. So the universe is just universing. This is the term people use, but I mean, it's a mechanical thing. It's able to do this condensation thing. These features, these physical forces can manifest, and complexity can build on top of complexity on top of complexity on top, and you can build a gigantic house of cards out of this mechanism, because it, puts one card down and it puts another card on and it puts another card and another card, and if things go right, it can make something bizarre in 4 billion years, and that's what we are, bizarre. That's it, though. Our function is still crude and rudimentary. Our function is to acquire enough bulk to be in a position to nurture the creation of a new being, to provide for its existence. And as I've pointed out, humans do that in a much more complex way. We just don't lay eggs and run away. Our obligations to the creation process are much more complex because of the niche of the environment that we're existing in. The demands were more was required through that process to create one of us. We had to be built not only physically but psychologically. We had to be nurtured into our existence, not just given the yolk, not just hatched from an egg. And the necessary skills aren't prepackaged. They have to be acquired. And there's a few other mammals stuck in that position, but we're certainly the most exotic of those. Especially in terms of being able to having the knowledge to function within a culture and society, having the necessary manners and whatnot. So in a way, we're back to the Helen Keller example, where she was not able initially to be part of society. She was an animal. She could be maintained. She could be functional physically, but not much else was happening. And until she gained knowledge, the capacity to learn, and that was, that created her capacity to become part of, to navigate successfully. She had the tools necessary, and you have to have tools to do certain jobs, and there's a job to this living thing in the modern era that requires a certain tool set. The tool set isn't about hardiness physically. It's about a kind of hardiness psychologically and intellectually, to be able to succeed, win. So where am I going? So I still want to get this back to the difficulty of perceiving a universe that has no innate, sensible, reasonable, rational function, and how that's just so not intuitive. Our brains do not want, they don't want it to be the truth, I think, and it's more basic than that. We just can't contemplate constructions that don't have intent or overtly obvious function. It's almost hard to do things. It's pouring water into the glass when the glass is upside down. We can't think of anything that would do that, because nothing in our world can survive by having disconnected tools. All the other animals, us, we have to be refined to the environment. We have to be very efficient in our function. We can't afford to be, backwards, stupid. um, in the basic physical structure, where the water goes into the wrong end, some sort of backward scenario. We can't afford backwardness. So it doesn't seem sensible to us to think that the universe and its function could be ignorant or stupid or unaware of this necessity, because it seems like it forced it into us. It seems like it forced it into the natural environment. And it didn't. I mean, it did in the sense that that's the rules of the game. Something has to gain those efficiencies. But there's nothing... The perception that that is in itself purposeful is probably where our brain goes wrong. The necessity of it. We concede to the necessity. We concede that gravity is going to be gravity. It's not going to just say, well, I don't really need to pull in that asteroid. It's not an issue. It's a force of demand. And that's the world we've been constructed in, is one that doesn't yield. The physical laws don't yield. You can't wish it away. You can't think it away. Still not quite getting where I want to go. So anyway, what we have is a universe, and we have this thing, this idea of a something. There's something rather than nothing. Both are almost impossible to comprehend. It's impossible to comprehend nothing that goes forever. That doesn't make much sense. And it is equally difficult to comprehend something that goes forever. So it's that paradox, that problem of contemplation is always going to exist, I think. I don't think there's ever going to be a resolution to it. And I don't think we'll ever be able to see the mechanisms of our creation, because the information that we are has to be destroyed to go there, to travel there. The information can't survive the journey, so we're never going to go to where to the mechanism producing, creating the something. It's like the Galapagos Islands are being built, island by island, and they're just out of one vent, and they're just drifting on the continental shelf. They're just drifting away. They're moving away as the shelf moves away. But we're never going to be able to look under the water. We're never going to be able to see the universe creating the universe, the cosmos creating the universe, or the universe creating the cosmos, or the whatever, the everything creating the something. We're not going to see that. Whatever, the something that creates the everything, I don't know. However it works. But again, it's back to, it's just crude forces. It just creates condensates. It creates things that can be polluted and dirty. So we're back to the water droplet. The water droplet can be just water, or the water droplet can have carbon in it, and it can have other elements in it. And once you start mixing these elements, you start creating these compounds, and there's a almost infinite, not really, but combination of mixtures that you can create, and properties that they will have because of how they're shaped and what components are stuck on them. And they'll acquire behaviors because of that. Triangles move through space different than circles. Wheels that are round work better on a car than squares. And the same is true for all of this chemical construct that has built us. It's all got its nuance and its character, and when you mix these pieces in a world that kind of places, in a universe that places a pressure, an unseen pressure, but it's just a pressure of practical necessity, that when you're funneled through the process, when you're funneled through 4 billion years of where things are not maintainable unless they follow these simple rules of survival in an environment. And that's the funnel. And that for 4 billion years it's pushed through the funnel, and it's consolidated and refined in its function. And that's what produced us. That's the machine that extruded us. And but what are we? Again, the bottom line is we're doing this perceptual thing, but the perceptual thing has almost no connection whatsoever. This big picture, I mean, the perceptual of the universe thing doesn't have anything. Contemplating the meaning of your life has absolutely nothing to do with why you have the capacity to contemplate the meaning of your life. The capacity was built out of it, was just a tool, was just something given to you so you could navigate a narrow environment and successfully get your DNA into the future. And so the thing that we are, the thing that we can do, isn't made purposeful through what it can do. Not everything it can do. It's only specific things that it makes you able to do is the reason why you have it. Like, I don't have all these movable digits so I can go, I'm number 1. See, I mean, that's, or go, fuck you. Yes, now that's not the purpose of me having a 5-digit hand and movable fingers and an opposable thumb and all this crap. Isn't just to do this. This isn't the function. Just as thinking about being alive, trying to understand the crude box that we're popped out of, the universe, the mechanics of it, doesn't have anything to do with why we have this capacity to do that. Alright, that's probably enough. So the point I'm trying to get to is there's nothing innate in the design. It creates condensates. It precipitates rust. It creates chemical compounds. And we're just rust times 4 billion years. That's sort of how you have to think about it. A kind of rust that when you give it 4 billion years, this is what it will turn into if you put it in an environment that demands that from it, that has a blueprint molecule doing the evolving. But that's all we are. We're just rusty rust. We're oxidized rust. we're just a chemistry in transition. I don't know. That's not a very good way to put it. But it's just an acquisition of chemical construction. And the DNA molecule is essentially, can be seen as, in information content, it reduces your physical form to a little tiny strands of junk, and essentially holds a little tiny copy of you. It's you, a little tiny you. So it's like a little piece of me is pulled off and put somewhere, and it will grow into another me if the right environment exists. So it's and that's all that's happening, is there's things reproducing over and over and over and over again. And that's where we came from. And we have the tool of consciousness and contemplation and thinking and understanding because it was a tool in the war we were fighting for survival. And that's not a great story. Alright, I know. Alright, so yeah, I struggle with this one a bit. So anyway, I still got 20 days. Yeah, I can do this one over. Anyway. So, thanks for listening. Really sorry, these are a little bit tedious sometimes. But the concepts are a little difficult. Some of them. Well, I mean, I just need this. I'm just, sometimes you have it and it's right there and you can see where you're going. And sometimes it's a little bit, how do I say the machinery of the universe is not innately or fundamentally intelligent. It just fundamentally has properties. Any universe you create, any something is going to have properties. You can't have something without the something having properties. And because of the properties of the matter in this universe, it was possible to create a replicating molecule, and that replicating molecule did this. But this isn't the function of the universe. It's just like a diamond in the ground. You can't call that the function of the universe. The universe doesn't exist to make diamonds. It just does.